I had a client once who came to me absolutely destroyed. She'd been rejected by a guy she liked, and she was convinced her life was over. I can't stand it. She kept saying, I need him to love me. So I asked her, really? You need him? Turns out, she didn't. She wanted him, sure, but she didn't need him. And that one distinction, understanding the difference between want and need, it changed everything for her. It can change everything for you, too. Here's what we're going to do in the next 25 minutes. I'm going to show you the exact mental habits that are making your life harder than it needs to be. Not because you're broken or damaged, but because nobody ever taught you how your mind actually works. You're probably walking around thinking that your feelings just happen to you. Someone does something, and boom, you feel angry, anxious, or depressed, like you have no control. But that's complete nonsense. See, most people think their emotions come directly from what happens to them. Bad event equals bad feeling. Good event equals good feeling. Simple, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. What actually happens is this. Something occurs, you have a thought about it, usually so fast you don't even notice, and that thought creates your feeling. And if your thought is irrational, demanding, or catastrophic, you're going to feel like hell. The pain you're experiencing right now, a lot of it is optional. You're demanding that life be different than it is. You're telling yourself you can't stand things that you're literally standing right now. You're rating yourself as a total failure because you failed at one thing. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this or give you some gentle therapy talk. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to show you where your thinking is screwed up. Because once you see it clearly, once you really get how you're doing this to yourself, you can change it. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't pretending everything's fine. This is about thinking rationally, about seeing reality as it actually is, not as you demand it should be. By the end of this video, you'll understand the ABC model that explains how your emotions actually work. You'll recognize the irrational beliefs that are torturing you, and you'll have practical tools to start disputing those beliefs and feeling better, not because your life got easier, but because you stopped making it harder. Let me ask you something. Your boss criticizes you at work. You feel terrible. What made you feel terrible? You probably think it was the criticism, right? Wrong. It was what you told yourself about the criticism. One person gets criticized and thinks, well, that sucks, but I can learn from this. They feel mildly disappointed. Another person, maybe you, thinks this is awful. I'm a total failure. I can't stand being criticized. I must have everyone's approval. That person feels devastated. Same event, different beliefs, different feelings. This is what I call the ABC model, and it completely changes how you understand your emotions. A equals activating event, that's what happens. B equals belief, that's what you tell yourself about it. And C equals consequence, that's how you feel and act. Most people think a cause is C directly, but it's always B, your belief, that creates C. Once you understand this, everything changes. Because if events cause feelings directly, you'd be screwed. You can't control what happens to you most of the time. But your beliefs? Those you can control. Those you can challenge and change. This is the difference between being a victim of your circumstances and being empowered to feel better regardless of what happens. Your beliefs happen lightning fast. You're not usually aware of them, but they're there. Every time you feel something, there's a thought behind it. And here's the key. Most of your beliefs about negative events are irrational. They're extreme, demanding, catastrophic. They make no logical sense, but you believe them anyway. And that's what's killing you. Let's say you ask someone on a date and they say no. It happens, you got rejected. Now, if your B is, oh well, not everyone's gonna like me. That's just reality. You'll feel C, mild disappointment, maybe, but you move on. But if your B is, this is terrible. I need this person to accept me. I'm unlovable. I'll never find anyone. You're gonna feel devastated, maybe depressed. Same rejection. Totally different emotional response based on what you're telling yourself. I like to use the example of two people stuck in traffic. Same situation, right? Both stuck, both going to be late. But one person is sitting there thinking this shouldn't be happening. This is awful. How dare these other drivers be on MY Road? That person is enraged, blood pressure through the roof, probably honking and yelling. The other person thinks, well, this is inconvenient, but I'll get there when I get there. Nothing I could do about it right now. That person is calm, maybe a little annoyed, but basically fine. Same traffic jam, completely different emotional experiences. The difference? What they're telling themselves about the traffic. Now, once you understand that your beliefs create your feelings, the next question is obvious. What exactly are those beliefs? What are you telling yourself that's so irrational? Well, there are three main types of crazy thinking that make people miserable, and I guarantee you're doing at least one of them right now. I call it masturbation. And before you laugh, hear me out. Masturbation is when you take your preferences, the things you want, and you turn them into absolute demands, absolute musts. And these must set you up for emotional devastation when reality doesn't comply with your demands. The first big one is this. I must perform well and win approval. This is the big one for most people. I must do well. I must succeed. I must have people like me and approve of me. Notice the word must. Not I'd prefer to do well, or it would be nice if people like me. Must. An absolute demand. And what happens when you don't perform perfectly? Or when someone doesn't approve of you? You fall apart. Because you've told yourself you must have these things, and now you don't have them. You think you're inadequate, worthless, a total failure. All because you demanded perfection instead of preferring it. I had a client, brilliant woman, who got rejected from a graduate program she really wanted to get into. And she came to me saying I'm such a failure. I'm stupid. I'll never amount to anything. All because she didn't get into one program. She had turned her preference, I'd really like to get into this program, into a demand, I absolutely must get in. And when that demand wasn't met, she concluded she was worthless. That's insane. That's irrational. But that's what people do all the time. Here's the second demand. Others must treat me fairly and kindly. People must be fair to me. They must not be difficult or frustrating. They must treat me the way I want to be treated. And then what happens? Someone cuts you off in traffic. Someone's rude to you. Your partner doesn't do what you expected. And you get enraged. How dare they? They shouldn't act that way. But why shouldn't they? They're human. Humans act badly sometimes. Humans are selfish sometimes. Humans make mistakes. When you demand that others be different than they are, you're setting yourself up for constant anger and frustration. I remember working with a guy who was furious all the time. Furious at his coworkers, furious at other drivers, furious at customer service people. And when we dug into it, he had this belief that people must be competent and considerate at all times. Can you imagine? He was demanding perfection from everyone around him. And of course, nobody met his standards. So he was constantly angry. When he finally understood that people don't have to be the way he wants them to be, when he changed his musts into preferences, his anger dropped dramatically. He was still annoyed sometimes, sure, but not enraged, because he stopped demanding the impossible. And here's the third one. Life must be easy and give me what I want. This is pure fantasy. Life must be comfortable. Things must go smoothly. I must not have to struggle or face difficulty. But think about it. Where is it written that life must be easy? Show me the cosmic law that says you're entitled to an easy life. You can't, because it doesn't exist. Life is often hard. Things go wrong. You face obstacles. But if you're demanding that life be easy, every difficulty becomes a catastrophe. Every setback becomes unbearable. You tell yourself, I can't stand this about things you're literally standing right now. This is what I call I can't stand it-itis. And it's complete garbage. Look, there's nothing wrong with wanting things. I want to succeed. I want people to be nice to me. I want life to go smoothly. Those are preferences. Preferences are fine. Healthy, even. They motivate you. They give you direction. But when you turn your preferences into demands, into absolute musts, you're screwed. Because reality doesn't care about your demands. Reality is what it is. The weather doesn't care that you demand sunshine. Your boss doesn't care that you demand praise. Life doesn't care that you demand ease. Think about it like this. You go to a restaurant. You can prefer that the food be delicious. That's reasonable. But if you demand that it be delicious, if you sit there thinking this food must be amazing, and then it's just okay, you've ruined your meal. You're sitting there fuming about how the food should be better, instead of just eating it and moving on. When you can change your musts into preferences, you free yourself. You can still want things, you can still try to make things better, but you're not devastated when things don't go your way. So you're making all these demands. And what happens when reality doesn't meet your demands? Well, that's when the real crazy thinking kicks in. You start awfulizing. You start CATSTROPHIZNG. You tell yourself that what's happening is not just bad. It's the worst thing possible. And let me tell you something. It almost never is. When I say you're awfulizing, here's what I mean. You're taking something that's bad, maybe at 20% bad on a scale of 0 to 100, and you're treating it like it's 101% bad. You're saying it's the worst possible thing. Now, is it really? Is missing your train the worst thing possible? Is being rejected by someone the worst thing possible? Is failing a test the worst thing possible? No, it's not even close. But you're telling yourself it is. And when you tell yourself something is awful, not just bad, but awful, you create extreme emotional distress. Here's what I ask people. On a scale where 0 is neutral and 100 is the worst thing you can imagine, like the death of everyone you love or being tortured to death, where does this situation actually rate? Usually, people realize it's maybe a 10, 20, 30 at most. But they're reacting like it's a 100. That's awfulizing. And it's making you way more miserable than you need to be. Most of what happens to you is inconvenient, frustrating, disappointing, but it's not awful. There's a huge difference. I work with a woman who got a parking ticket, just a regular parking ticket, and she came in a session almost in tears. "This is the worst day of my life," she said. "The worst day? Really?" I asked her, "Is it worse than the day your father died?" She stopped. "No, of course not." "Is it worse than the day you broke your leg?" "No." "So it's not the worst day of your life. It's a bad day, an annoying day, but not the worst." She was taking a minor inconvenience and blowing it up into a catastrophe. It was making her miserable for no good reason. And then there's catastrophizing about the future. This is where you predict a cascade of disasters. If I fail this test, I'll fail the class. If I fail the class, I won't graduate. If I don't graduate, I'll never get a job. If I never get a job, I'll be homeless and die alone. You see how insane this is? You're predicting disaster after disaster after disaster based on one setback. And most of those predictions won't come true. But you're making yourself anxious right now about an imaginary future catastrophe. I tell people, stop fortune-telling. You don't know what's going to happen. You really don't. You might fail the test and still pass the class. You might fail the class and still graduate. You might not graduate on time and still get a great job. You don't know, but you're treating your catastrophic predictions like they're facts. And you're torturing yourself over things that probably won't even happen. So how do you stop? You challenge it. When you catch yourself thinking this is awful, you stop and ask, is it really? Or is it just bad? Inconvenient? Disappointing? You force yourself to rate it realistically. And you remind yourself, even if this is bad, I can stand it. I don't like it, but I can handle it. Because here's the truth. You've handled every difficult thing that's happened to you so far. You're still here. You're still functioning. You can stand way more than you think you can. Think about stubbing your toe versus breaking your leg. Both hurt, but one is way worse than the other, right? If you stub your toe, you don't go around saying this is the worst pain imaginable. I can't stand it. My life is over. You say, ow, that hurts, and you move on. But with your emotional pain, you treat every little hurt like a broken leg, like it's unbearable. It's not. Most of it is like a stubbed toe. It hurts, it's annoying, but you can absolutely stand it. Okay, so you're making demands, and you're awfulizing when your demands aren't met. But there's one more piece of crazy thinking that's probably destroying your self-esteem right now. And it's this. You're rating yourself as a person based on your behaviors and performances. And that is one of the most damaging things you can do to yourself. Here's what people do all the time. They mess up at something, they fail a test, make a mistake at work, say something stupid, and they conclude, I'm a failure. I'm worthless. I'm bad. They take one behavior or performance and use it to rate their entire self. But think about this for a second. How can you rate yourself as a person? You're incredibly complex. You do thousands of things in your life. Some good, some bad, most in between. How can you sum all of that up into one rating? You can't. It's impossible. but you try anyway, and it makes you miserable. When you say I'm a failure, what you really mean is I failed at this one thing. But you're not just what you failed at. You're also what you succeeded at. You're also what you haven't tried yet. You're too complex to be reduced to one label. And yet you do it. You damn your entire self based on one performance. That's not rational. That's not logical. That's just you beating yourself up for no good reason. And it doesn't help you improve. It just makes you feel like garbage. I had a client who thought she was completely worthless because she got divorced. Her marriage ended, and she concluded, I'm a total failure as a person. I'm unlovable. I'm defective. But think about how crazy that is. Her marriage ended. That's one relationship, one part of her life. It doesn't define her entire worth as a human being. She was also a good mother, a successful professional, a loyal friend. But she was so focused on this one failure that she couldn't see anything else. She was rating herself instead of rating that one relationship. Here's what I teach instead. Unconditional self-acceptance. You accept yourself as a fallible human being who sometimes does well and sometimes screws up. You rate your behaviors. Yes, that behavior was bad. That performance was poor. But you don't rate yourself. You're not good or bad. You're neutral. You're a person, a complex, changing, evolving person. When you can accept yourself unconditionally while still evaluating your behaviors honestly, everything changes. You can acknowledge mistakes without destroying your self-esteem. Think about it like an orange. If an orange has one rotten spot, is it a completely rotten orange? No, it's an orange with one rotten spot. You can cut out the bad part and eat the rest. You're the same way. You might have done something bad, but that doesn't make you a bad person. You're a person who did something bad. There's a huge difference. Einstein failed at things. Mozart failed at things. Everyone you admire has failed at something. Are they failures? No. They're people who failed at some things and succeeded at others. Just like you. Stop damning yourself as a total person because of one behavior or one performance. Next time you mess up, catch yourself. Notice if you're saying I'm stupid, or I'm a failure, or I'm worthless. Stop. Correct yourself. Say instead, I did something stupid. I failed at this task. I behaved in a way I don't like. Rate the behavior, not yourself. And then ask, what can I learn from this? How can I do better next time? You don't need to attack yourself to improve. In fact, attacking yourself makes it harder to improve because you're so busy feeling terrible about yourself that you can't focus on the actual problem. All right, so now you understand how you're making yourself miserable. You're making irrational demands, you're awfulizing, and you're damning yourself as a person. The question now is, what do you do about it? How do you actually change these thought patterns? That's what I'm going to show you next, the specific techniques you can use starting today. The core technique is what I call disputation. You actively challenge and question your irrational beliefs using logic, evidence, and practicality. You don't just notice the thoughts. You argue with them vigorously. When you catch yourself thinking irrationally, you dispute it 3 ways. First, logical disputing. Does this belief make logical sense? I must succeed. Where's the logic in that? Just because you want something doesn't mean you must have it. The universe doesn't owe you success. You'd like to succeed, sure, but there's no logical reason why you absolutely must. Second, empirical disputing. Where's the evidence? I'm a total failure, really? Show me the evidence that you fail at everything. You can't because it's not true. You've succeeded at plenty of things. You might have failed at this one thing, but that doesn't make you a total failure. The evidence doesn't support your belief. Third, pragmatic disputing. Is this belief helping you? Even if you can't prove it wrong. Is believing I'm worthless helping you feel better or perform better? No, it's hurting you. It's making you depressed, anxious, unmotivated. So why keep believing it? What's the point? If a belief is making your life worse and not helping you in any way, why hang on to it? Let me give you an example. Let's say you're anxious about a presentation at work. Your thought is, I must do this perfectly, and if I don't, it'll be awful, and everyone will think I'm incompetent. Stop right there. Challenge it. Must you do it perfectly? No. It would be nice to do well, but there's no cosmic law that says you must. Plenty of people give imperfect presentations and survive just fine. Would it be awful if you made mistakes? No. Disappointing, maybe. Inconvenient. But awful? That's an exaggeration. Awful is genocide. Awful is terminal cancer. A flawed presentation is not awful. It's just less than ideal. Would everyone think you're incompetent? Probably not. Most people are too focused on their own stuff to judge you that harshly. And even if some people did think you performed poorly, so what? You can stand that. Their opinion doesn't define your worth. This is how you dispute. You question everything. You don't just accept your thoughts as true. You challenge them. After you dispute the irrational belief, you replace it with a rational one. Instead of "I must succeed," try "I'd prefer to succeed, but I don't have to." If I fail, it's not the end of the world, it's just disappointing. Instead of "This is awful," try "This is inconvenient and frustrating, but I can stand it." Instead of "I'm a failure," try "I failed at this task, but that doesn't define me as a person." You're not lying to yourself. You're not being overly positive. You're being rational. You're seeing reality as it is. You failed at something. That's true, but you're not a total failure. That's also true. The situation is bad. That's true, but it's not the worst thing possible. That's also true. You're just being accurate instead of extreme. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. This isn't easy at first. You've been thinking irrationally for years, maybe decades. These thought patterns are habits, strong habits. You're not going to change them overnight. You're going to have to practice disputing every single day, multiple times a day. You're going to catch yourself, challenge yourself, correct yourself, over and over and over. But if you do this consistently, the irrational thoughts get weaker and the rational ones get stronger. It works. I've seen it work with thousands of people. I've seen people overcome depression, anxiety, rage problems, all through consistent disputation of their irrational beliefs. It'll work for you if you actually do it. Think of it like building a muscle. The first time you lift weights, it's hard. It's uncomfortable. You're weak. But if you keep doing it, you get stronger. Disputation is the same way. The first few times you try to challenge your thoughts, it feels awkward. It doesn't feel natural. The irrational thoughts feel true, and the rational ones feel fake. But if you keep practicing, keep disputing, keep replacing the irrational with the rational, it gets easier. The rational thoughts start to feel more natural. The irrational ones start to lose their power. I remember teaching a client to dispute her catastrophic thoughts about social situations. She was terrified of social events, convinced everyone would judge her, reject her, think she was boring. So I had her write down every catastrophic thought and dispute it. Is it true everyone will judge me? No, probably not. Even if some people do judge me, is that awful? No, just unpleasant. Does their judgment define my worth? No, I'm still me regardless of what they think. She practiced this for weeks. Every time she had a catastrophic thought, she wrote it down and disputed it. And slowly, her anxiety decreased. Not because social situations got easier, but because she stopped telling herself catastrophic stories about them. She went from avoiding all social events to actually enjoying some of them. That's the power of consistent disputation. Now, here's the thing. Everything I've taught you so far is useless if you don't actually apply it. And I know what happens. People learn this stuff, they nod along, they say, yeah, that makes sense, and then they go back to their lives and nothing changes. They don't do the work. So I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do and what's probably going to stop you from doing it. You know what stops most people from changing? They have what I call low frustration tolerance. They think, this is too hard. It shouldn't be this hard. I shouldn't have to work at changing my thinking. See what they're doing? They're making another irrational demand. Change must be easy. No, it mustn't. Change is often difficult. It takes effort. It's uncomfortable. But you can do difficult things. You can stand discomfort. Stop telling yourself you can't. That's just another irrational belief that needs disputing. People want to feel better, but they don't want to feel uncomfortable while getting there. They want a magic pill, a quick fix, 5 easy steps to happiness. But real change requires you to feel uncomfortable while you practice new ways of thinking and behaving. If you have social anxiety and you avoid social situations, you'll never overcome it. You have to go to social situations, feel the anxiety, and practice thinking rationally while you're anxious. That's uncomfortable, but there's no way around it. Discomfort is the price of growth. I give people homework. I tell them, write down your irrational beliefs every day. Dispute them in writing. Keep a journal. Practice rational self-statements. Do behavioral exercises that push you outside your comfort zone. And you know what? A lot of people don't do it. They want to feel better without doing the work. But therapy, real change, isn't passive. It's active. It's work. It's like buying a gym membership and expecting to get fit without actually going to the gym. It doesn't work that way. The membership doesn't make you fit. The workouts do. Same with this. Learning about rational thinking doesn't make you rational. Practicing rational thinking makes you rational. If you actually want to stop making life harder than it is, you're going to have to put in the effort. No one else can do it for you. I can't do it for you. Your therapist can't do it for you. Your partner can't do it for you. You have to do it. You have to catch your irrational thoughts. You have to dispute them. You have to replace them with rational ones. You have to practice every single day. Here's the beautiful thing, though. When you put in the work, when you consistently practice disputing your irrational beliefs and accepting yourself unconditionally, your life changes. Not because your circumstances get better, they might or they might not, but because you stop making yourself miserable over your circumstances. You develop what I call high frustration tolerance. You can handle difficulty. You can stand disappointment. You can face rejection without falling apart. You become emotionally resilient. And that's worth every bit of discomfort you have to go through to get there. I work with a guy who had terrible anxiety about job interviews. He'd been unemployed for months because he was too anxious to even apply for jobs. He was convinced he'd screw up the interview. Everyone would think he was incompetent, and he'd never get hired. Classic catastrophic thinking. So I gave him homework. Every day, he had to write down his catastrophic thoughts and dispute them. And he had to start applying for jobs and going to interviews, even though he was anxious. He hated it first. He complained constantly. This is too hard. I'm too anxious. I can't do this. But I kept pushing him. You can do this. You're just uncomfortable. Do it anyway. And slowly, he started doing the work. He disputed his thoughts. He went to interviews. He felt anxious, but he did it anyway. And you know what happened? He got a job. Not because his anxiety went away completely, it didn't, but because he learned to function despite his anxiety. He learned that he could feel anxious and still perform adequately. He learned that his catastrophic predictions didn't come true. And over time, his anxiety decreased because he stopped feeding it with irrational thoughts. That's what happens when you do the work. You don't become perfect. You don't eliminate all negative emotions. But you become resilient. You become capable. You stop making yourself miserable over every little setback. So here's what you've learned today. And I want you to really hear this. You are not a victim of your emotions. You're not helpless. Most of your suffering, not all of it, but most of it, you're creating yourself through irrational thinking. You learned the ABC model. Events don't cause your feelings. Your beliefs about events cause your feelings. And that means you have power. You can change your beliefs. You learned about masturbation, how you make demands that life, other people, and you yourself must be a certain way, and how those demands set you up for misery when reality doesn't comply. Change your musts to preferences, and you free yourself. You learn about awfulizing and catastrophizing, how you take things that are merely bad or inconvenient and blow them up into the worst thing possible. Stop exaggerating. Rate things realistically. Most of what happens to you is manageable, even if it's not pleasant. You learn about self-rating versus behavior rating. You are not a failure, a bad person, or worthless. You're a fallible human who sometimes succeeds and sometimes screws up. Accept yourself unconditionally while still working to improve your behaviors. And you learned how to dispute your irrational beliefs, how to challenge them logically, empirically, and pragmatically, how to replace them with rational coping statements, and how to practice this consistently until it becomes natural. But here's the key. You have to do this. You have to practice. You have to catch yourself thinking irrationally and challenge it. You have to push yourself to face discomfort instead of avoiding it. You have to do the work. Nobody's coming to save you. No one's going to make you feel better. You have to do it, and you can do it. I've seen thousands of people change using these techniques. People who were depressed for years. People who were crippled by anxiety. People who hated themselves. They changed. Not overnight. Not easily. But they changed. And if they can do it, so can you. So here's my challenge to you. For the next week, catch yourself every time you make an irrational demand, every time you awfulize, every time you damn yourself. Write it down. Dispute it. Replace it with a rational belief. Do this every single day. It's going to feel weird at first. It's going to feel like work. Because it is work. But do it anyway. Stop making life harder than it is. Stop torturing yourself with impossible demands and catastrophic thinking. Start thinking rationally. Start accepting yourself. Start handling life's difficulties without falling apart. You deserve better than the misery you're creating for yourself. And you have the power to stop creating it. Now get to work. And hey, if you want to go even deeper on this, I've got another video you need to watch. It's about the one belief that destroys more lives than any other, and it's probably running in your head right now without you even knowing it. I break down exactly what it is, why it's so toxic, and how to eliminate it completely. It's called the one irrational belief that's ruining your life. Click it right now. Don't wait. Your future self will thank you.